This is Matthew McConaughey,
Natalie Portman,
James Patterson,
Michael Ian Black,
and you are listening to
Five Questions
with Dan
Schawbel.
Kendra, welcome to Five Questions.
Thank you so much for having me today.
What did you learn about business and life from your coal miner grandfather and lawyer father?
You know, I really wanted my book and Born to Shine to reflect my upbringing. And so many of us are a reflection, right, of our parents, of their life. And so, working in the farm and being there in the summers with my family, seeing how it took every member of the family had a specific job. And it was this collaborative team to totally make that farm function and their family eat and everybody to be able to have success. Was such a great thing for me to see and be a part of. And I think it taught me how essential it is to build a winning team around you. And then my grandparents in Chicago, very different life, living in the city. My grandmother sold shoes. My grandfather was a parts manager at Chrysler Motors. And, my dad was the first to go to college. So for them to really work hard to put my father to go to school to become a lawyer of all things was, something where they all that work ethic is what they taught me. And I think, I'm so grateful that I had both sides, very different, from my mother and my father's side, but both of them added so much to my life and who I am today.
Yeah, they sound like really great role models for you. And usually when I ask, my first question for years is usually revolved around upbringing and family, because of course, after interviewing almost 3,000 people, you can draw the connection that, one's upbringing and environment and parents and maybe even siblings can have such a dramatic effect in terms of how people think and behave and the decisions they make even later in life. So I've always been kind of fascinated by that, especially because I understand my parents and they instill work ethic in me, just like,
Right.
your family instill work ethic in you and what that's done for me. So I like, it's become very relatable because you can't just outsource work ethic.
Well, and your DNA, right, that your parents give you at birth is one thing, but the DNA they give you while they're raising you and you're seeing and watching and learning from them every day is even greater. That really makes you the person you become, and that you are two parts of these different people that are in your life. So 100%.
Well said. And what skill set did you acquire when you were building your first company, the Hat Box, that helped you with your current company?
That little store was my MBA. Okay. It was this, I always say I got a master's degree in the School of Hard Knocks, and it was called the Hat Box. Okay. It was 5 years of running a retail business so hard. Doing it on keystone margins, which are like just 50% margins, trying to figure out rent, overhead, really being the only employee. Sometimes my mom would come help. I had one part-time associate. It was the retail 101. It could not have given me a greater gift of not just running that business, but failing at that business. I'm so thankful for those 5 years at the Hat Box and the ability to open and then also see what that felt like to close a store and learn all of the lessons that I needed to learn about retail, about business, about customer service, all of those things that I don't know if I would have been taught in college the same way as having that store. It was the foundation for growing the next thing that did work, which is Kendra Scott Jewelry and why we're sitting here today. But I needed that business, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the success and the failure to be able to create the successful business that I have today. So thankful for it. When you're in it and you're in a business that's failing, you're not seeing it quite that way. You're feeling miserable and you're thinking, I'm going to be a failure for the rest of my life. But when you have that ability to look back behind you and go, oh, that's why that I needed to go through that. That's why that needed to happen. It was my bridge to get me to the next better place I was going.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a recent college graduate, I started my own magazine and blog and various other things. But I always viewed the magazine as my MBA, sort of like how you viewed your first business, because I was learning about, getting people to write for the magazine, designing the magazine, getting sponsors for the magazine. There's so many elements. And so when you look at, what you've done or what anyone's done, maybe you make it look easy, but it's actually really hard. And there's so many facets that you learn when you start a business. And all the research that I've done over the years, firsthand experience and on-the-job training is the most valuable. No, of course, a book can augment and support you and give you certain frameworks, but you got to do it at the end of the day. And I think most entrepreneurs would agree.
I agree. I am a professor now at the University of Texas, and I started a women's entrepreneurial and leadership institute. And I tell my students every day, go get a job, get an internship, even if it's part-time, even if it's one day a week, even if it's just one day on the weekend, but get inside of a business and learn the things, because you may find out that you actually like something that you had no idea you'd be interested in, but by having that experience is invaluable. So experience is so key.
A career in life is a collection of experiences too. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Retail is very tough. I mean, I think the biggest obstacle that I hear from a retail standpoint, and what I see every day just walking around outside, is, hard to find help, hard to hire, tough times. A lot of retail stores had to close during COVID. How are you able to navigate some of these big obstacles like, the 2008 financial crisis, the COVID pandemic, and others?
So, I think, first of all, we have an unbelievable connection with our customers, very different from a lot of brands and retailers out there. When I started this company 20 years ago out of my extra bedroom, I decided that for me, success was going to be not just creating, jewelry or creating a fashion line, which is what my passion was. I love design, but I wanted to make a positive impact. I wanted to do something more than that. So anyone that would call me for a silent auction item, whatever it might be for a nonprofit, I said I was never going to turn them down. I could make a pair of earrings. I could make a necklace. We kept that going. And here we are 20 years later. So those connections that we started to build with our customers through these nonprofit events, through our buy one, give one, where we go to oncology centers and connect with women undergoing breast cancer treatment and meeting them one-on-one. Those are more than anything that anybody could understand. So when you go through these ups and downs in a business, we have our heart connected to our customer. It's not just about transaction at Kendra Scott. It never has been. If you walk into our store, I always tell my team, connection before transaction. If they leave with a smile and they don't have a yellow bag, you just made a successful sale. They think, what? We didn't make a sale. Yes, you did, because you made a connection. And that person is going to remember how they felt when they entered your store, how they felt when they interacted with your brand. And they may not buy today, but they probably will in the future, or they sure will tell their friend or somebody else how that interaction made them feel. So survival for us has been a few things. One, I think it's that connection. And two, being able to be pivot and be agile. Sometimes we lay out a plan, and let's talk about the 2020 pandemic, we had a beautiful plan. Gorgeous. Let's say this is it. And this is what I had to do in March. Okay. I had to rip the plan up and I had to start from scratch, and we had to put whatever we could up on that whiteboard and see what stuck. We couldn't just say, well, this was our plan. We got to do this plan. We had to be agile, and we had to shift our business, and we had to meet our customer where she was in that moment. And in that moment, she couldn't be in our retail stores. So our sales associates started doing virtual styling, walking her through the store during FaceTime, figuring out ways to connect with her that kept that connection going even when our doors had to close. So I think that's really key for a lot of businesses, is knowing that sometimes the best laid plans will get shaken up, and you get that shake the snow globe, and it'll force you to do something different. 2008, and I want to touch on that. If it wasn't for the Great Recession, you and I would not be talking. I would not be on Shark Tank. I would not have a $1 billion brand. I was only selling to other retail stores, not my own. I didn't have one Kendra Scott retail store. I didn't even have an e-commerce website prior to that. It was an informational site that directed you to these other retailers that sold my line. Why? Because the hat box failed, and I was terrified of being back in retail again. The recession forced me to rethink, because I realized I didn't have a personal connection with my customer. Stores that I had been selling to were shuttering every day. Buyers I built relationships were losing their jobs. And I realized they had all the power. They had the power of the future of my company in their hands. And the only way that I could save our company and help it grow was to change the way we were doing business. We had to directly connect with our customer. So we opened our first retail store in the middle of a recession. We changed our website to a complete e-commerce, unbelievable website, even an interactive color bar experience where you could custom design pieces of jewelry. And from that moment to today, we have had lightning in a bottle growth. And it was the recession that forced me to have to think differently. So sometimes, as business owners, entrepreneurs, even in our lives, personal lives, we can go through these really scary events. But I want you to know that on the other side of that could be the greatest opportunity, the greatest next thing that you or your business are about to experience.
And going back to what you said before too, and just to emphasize that in the moment, it seems terrible. But of course, in hindsight, in months or maybe even years from then, you look back and you're like, oh, this helped me get to this new place. And I love what you have to say about, branding and storytelling and positive interactions, especially because it's your name too. So you want people to have positive feelings about you and the company. But if you're trying to build a brand, this is not going to happen in 2 days, right? And
no, it's
especially $1 billion brand. So it takes
right.
time and a ton of positive interactions to be able to get to what you've built.
No, 100%. I mean, you have got it, and it's got to be consistent, and you have to lead by example every day. And I wake up every single day. Our team wakes up every single day, and we say, we are not going to be complacent. How are we going to surprise and delight our customer today? Every day is a new day to do something special to make that connection. I think when you look at brick and mortar today and so many businesses losing it, they're forgetting their sole purpose is to create a brand connection in that store environment. Forget about your daily sales. Those will all come if you start to focus on the most important thing, which is that connection you're going to make when that person enters this world that you have created and their experience with how that interaction is. If retailers today just thought about that, they would be able to survive some of these crazy things that are happening in the world today.
Definitely. And part of what I think makes you unique and kind of special, I've talked to a ton of your contemporaries over the years, is philanthropy is at the foundation. That's part of how I would summarize how you've operated and grown and the connections you've made, like you just stated too. This is not just, you woke up one day a few years ago and you're like, oh, I'm going to, donate money. No, it's part of the fabric of the company and everything that you stand for. And so in what ways have you made philanthropy part of how you've done business throughout your career?
So from the very beginning, it was for me, like I said, before, it was how I would see success in our brand. So if we could have a fashion brand and do something fun that we all enjoy doing and make people feel good with the products that we create, we wanted to be able to make a positive impact on our community around us. We really started to focus on women's and children's charities. 96% of the Kendra Scott team are females. Lots of mothers in that group as well. And so we really were focusing on women and children's charities. And that was on our kind of the DNA of our brand as well. And it was great because in the beginning, we did what we could. Like I said, we'd make a pair of earrings, we'd give a necklace for an event. We never said no to anybody. And we started to look at our Kendra Gives Back events, which were events that we host in our store where we give 20% back. And I would look on my dashboard, Dan, on not just our top line revenue, but where were we with our give back dollars? And we had goals for the year. So I remember one year we were at $3 million for Kendra Gives Back events. We would track that just like we were tracking our revenue as a company. And what that does for our team is they're also working for so much more than just the sales of a company. And they're getting to interact with these amazing organizations, meeting patients, meeting people who are going through things and knowing that their contribution, the salesperson in the store, their contribution that day made a difference in this person's life. And that's pretty unbelievable. And so it also is starting to get this younger group of, 20 somethings to understand the power of philanthropy. You don't have to be rich to be a philanthropist. You just have to be giving with your time, your love, your energy, whatever it might be. So we built that up. Now, since 2016, we've given over $50 million to women's and children's charities. And that is for us, we sit there and we go, wow. And that's what all of us are most proud of. I know when I'm sitting in my rocker at like 95, I'm hopefully still cutting ribbons on Kendra Scott stores in my wheelchair or whatever I'll be in. I know that's what we're going to look back on and think, this is the impact that our brand was able to have on this world. And we all have such a short time on this earth. My stepfather died of brain cancer when he was 47 years old. I'm that age, right? I'm right at that age. And I think about it every day of, his message to me was use the gifts you were given, Kendra, to do something good. And we have a phrase at Kendra Scott saying, you do good, because when he had brain cancer, he would have trouble kind of putting some of the words together, but he would be so proud of me with the things I was doing for, headwear for women and men with undergoing chemotherapy. And he said to me, you do good. And those 3 words are really our guiding light and our North Star at Kendra Scott. We all want to do good. And it really is something that we feel like we've just scratched the surface of. We've created this Women's Entrepreneurial and Leadership Institute. We have research grants for metastatic breast cancer happening. We're able now to start doing some really big things that are difference makers. In addition to still supporting all of these amazing local communities that we get to, have our stores in and being involved with.
And that's probably why you've gotten through and navigated a lot of these big obstacles too, is because your workers, they don't want to just make money. They also want purpose and meaning, especially over the past few years when people have kind of recalibrated and wanted more from life than just doing the job. They want to know that, a company is really making an impact, and to show that impact in terms of raising, tens of millions of dollars and donating and whatnot. I think that is not only a great retention tool, but it's just the right thing to do.
Well, it is. I mean, you think about, we're in almost 40 hospitals with our Kendra Cares program, is where we bring our color bar, our customization fun bar into pediatric hospitals across the country. And our sales staff of those cities are the ones that volunteer their time to go in once a month to see the kids and help them with color bar. And I can't even explain to you the impact that experience has on my team and how much they love it. And they fight to volunteer. I mean, they're fighting. You got to do it last month. I want to do it. They love it so much. And it's like they know that their job is meaningful. And also they have a leader and an organization around them that wants to see them succeed and is there to support them at any stage of their life, whether that's, pregnancy, after pregnancy, having your baby. We really want to help you figure out how to live the most happy, healthy life that you can. And so we're so about thinking about them, like, what do you want? How can I help you achieve that? And, that creates a really dynamic family environment, which is one of our core values at Kendra Scott.
And what's your best piece of career advice?
My best piece of career advice is you can't do it alone. As an entrepreneur, I can tell you this, as a mother and bonus mom to 6 children, I can tell you this, no one is superwoman. No one can do anything by themselves. It does take a village, and it takes, as an entrepreneur, I would say building the team, knowing your strengths, but more importantly, knowing your weaknesses and making sure you create a team around you that are badass at the things that you are not great at, and having that collaborative team that shares your core values. It doesn't matter if they have a gold-plated resume, pick them on their heart first. And I promise you can teach skills, but you can't teach heart. Do it with a great team. And then as far as moms go, get a mom network. You need it. I always say, reach out for help. A lot of us want to be so perfect. Like we have it all under control and we have everything figured out. And that is a myth. And there's no reason for us to have to do that anymore. Find some friends, call them up. If you can't do something and then you need help, ask for help. That is the greatest sign of strength. It is not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely. And what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no, so you go to the next person. So
exactly.
The only thing that prevents people from moving forward is themselves. Like you can just reach out,
Yes.
The world is at your fingertips with technology, and I think it does take that, extra effort in putting yourself out there and then finding the right people, which in itself takes patience and a skill set to be able to identify them. But once you have them, you know you have them, and you can build and grow so much from there. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun. I loved every minute of it.